announcement. Anybody likes to jump in cold, freezing water, Oklahoma Stillwater Polar Plunge, we're going to do that February 10th. Connie, I think I told you the 5th. It's the 10th. February 10th, if you want to sign up, you want to have a team, you want to volunteer money, you want to just jump in cold water just because you like jumping in cold water, come see me and I'll send you the QR code. But we're going to talk about Courtney. Courtney Callison is our Secretary of Elections over Payne County. Some of you know that used to be my old gig, my old job, but I gladly turned it over many years ago to follow a different path, and I will say I left it in good hands. Courtney is an outstanding young professional in our community. If you guys have never met Courtney, you need to. She is smart, she's innovative, she's thinking of new ways to draw people to voting and to volunteering for voting. She has a great background to do this. She's very ethical and moral. And I'm personally glad that she will oversee the elections if I'm on a ballot. So with that, I'm going to bring Courtney up here and let her tell you a little bit about herself and what the landscape next year for all these big elections look like.
You're ready to go, aren't you?
Okay. Hello. I'm already going through my whole thing. Like Glenna said, my name's Courtney. I've met a lot of you, and if I haven't, I'd be happy to take a moment to do that. So I know a lot of us grew up being told not to talk about religion or politics at the table, but we're going to break that a little bit today. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a firm believer that you can't buy into someone's passion and their project unless you know a little bit about them. I grew up in Northwest Oklahoma in a small town, Moreland. Does anybody know where that is? Shocking. Okay. Very small. I went to Southwestern Oklahoma State and studied psychology. I worked in that field for a little bit and realized that was not my jam. I moved to Stillwater in 2015 with my two daughters. They are 12 and 10 now. And I completely fell in love with the community. I like to tell people that this is a big city, but it has a small town feel. And that is something that I really needed coming from a small town. I kind of fell into the election board in 2020. Like a lot of people, I had no idea what an election board was. I started in June of 2020, and if anybody remembers that, it was complete chaos, right? So I started baptism by fire, was thrown in the deep end, and I freaked out for a minute, and then I fell in love. I was promoted to assistant secretary in November of that year, and then of May of 2023, I was appointed by Senator Tom Duggar to take over the office. My office is made up by 3 full-time employees, myself, my assistant Kate McKinney, and my chief clerk Lindsay Sobrowski. They're both Cushing natives. So we have a little bit of representation from all over the county. The main function of my office is to supervise all Oklahoma elections, whether it's federal, state, county, local, or municipality, or schools. And we love what we do there. I like to tell people that it's kind of a family affair because not only are my kids up in the office sometimes helping pack supplies, they have teenage boys. So I put them to work with heavy equipment and lugging things around. Along with that, we have a board that I'm a member of, and as well as 2 other members, which would be a Democrat and a Republican member. Our Republican member is actually here, Thomas Walraven. He's our chair, and Dennis Berthoff is our vice chair. And then along with that, they have 2 alternates in case they're not able to make the meeting, which is Mike Woods and Connie Parker. Our board plays a huge part in the function of an election. We can't do it without them. They are appointed by the state election board, and those names come from their respective parties. So they actually took their 4-year term in May, kind of the same way I did. Some of the general duties that they do are they attend all meetings, they examine absentee ballot affidavits and determine whether those were filled out sufficiently, and then we count the ballots. They are there on election night canvassing the unofficial election results. They observe any provisional ballots that come in prior to 5 o'clock on the Friday following, And they also certify the election after 5 on Friday following the election. If we have a contest of candidacy or a recount, they are also heavily involved in that. And they also approved precinct boundaries in 2020 after the census that we restructured. Our mission at the office, when I came in, we really didn't have a mission other than what the state will say, which is to conduct free and fair elections across Oklahoma. That is great, but for a personal mission that I wanted to bring, our mission is to earn and maintain the trust of Payne County voters and the public officials by being accountable, reliable, and transparent, and delivering timely and accurate elections with a strict adherence to the Oklahoma law and governing ethics. Like I mentioned in 2020, that's kind of when our political climate kind of went way downhill, very volatile, just a breeding ground of mistrust. Oklahoma doesn't rank very high in a lot of categories, but when it comes to election systems and integrity, we're at the best of the best. You won't see us on the news. And we do things kind of the old school way. We don't connect to the internet. We don't do these experimental things. We stick to what we know and what is good, and a lot of other states are looking to us to kind of copy what we're doing. In our office, we're very passionate about defending that and protecting our system. And we want to reestablish trust, especially in our county. All over the state would be great, but what we can affect changes in our county. So some specific statistics for Payne County when we're talking about what we can do here. Our population at the end of 2023 was 82,000, and at the end of December we had 43,000 registered voters. That's a little over half, and that's okay, but it could be a lot better. Further down you can see where we broke it out into the actual political parties. We're Red County. Democrats are pretty close behind, and then we are seeing an influx of people going to independent. I won't really discuss why we think that, but you can gather what you'd like. So when it comes to voter turnout, in 2020 for the presidential election, we had 29,000 voters come out across the county. In the gubernatorial, 21,000. Not great. When we look at our local, 3,000, 5,000. That is terrible. It's disheartening. When I go and talk to people about voter turnout, you can see the importance of that. We're not even halfway showing up in our general elections. Every vote counts, every election counts, but if you really want to see your vote matter, it's in our local elections, and people are not showing up for that. It's important. These matters are important. You're talking about your city council, your school board, your propositions, your tax dollars. That's where people need to be showing up in our numbers. A couple of new things that are coming this year. We are opening a early voting site in Cushing. So historically, we've only voted in Stillwater, and didn't matter where you were in the county, you had to come to Stillwater if you wanted to vote early on that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before. So when I was interviewing with Senator Duggar, he brought up this idea of making Cushing an early voting site, and I was on board. I will do anything legally to help somebody vote that is eligible to vote. So we're hoping to see a larger turnout over there. And then another quick change, in case you happen to be in this precinct, precinct 402, that was Harley Davidson. Since they're closing down, we have found a new location, and it's actually just going to be a hop, skip, and a jump behind where we already were at the CREC Community Center. And then some personal statistics since I took office and kind of took the office in a more open and transparent direction. We've been out in the community a lot, doing a lot of community engagements. We've had 741 new voters since May, and that's an average of 123 a month. Those are really good, but I'm not done. I want higher registrations. Another thing that I have to talk about is volunteers, and I'm sure people are so tired of hearing it. But they are needed. They are essential to holding elections. If we didn't have them, we couldn't hold an election. Payne County has 30 precincts or polling places. Each one of those has to have a minimum of 3 volunteers, so that means I need 90 people for an election. Currently, I only have 106. So I'm just praying to God nobody gets sick, they don't go on vacation, forget to show up. So we need a larger bench when it comes to volunteers. Out there, they're the essential part of the election system. They perform a valuable community service and ensure that the democratic process is performed with integrity. We pay our volunteers. The younger kids like that. You get $100 at the end of the day, so it's a long day for short pay. But the legislation actually passed in July of this year. It'll go up to 200, which we have not ever seen a jump that high. Also, along with having to have 3 people out there, I have to have a bipartisan board, meaning I have to have 1 Republican and 1 Democrat at least, and then we'll filter in independents and libertarians wherever. I have been talking to a lot of the young professionals of Stillwater, getting the younger people out there and volunteering. You can probably guess my average age of volunteers. 60 and up, yeah. And I love them. They show up every time. They know what they're doing, but they're tired. A 12 and 13 hour day takes a toll. It would take a toll on me. So some of them are wanting to leave, but they won't because they have that civic duty. They have that personal connection to it, and they want to make sure that our elections are ran correctly. So my hope is to kind of maybe ignite or reignite that civic duty in the younger generations. One of my favorite things about my job is the future voter education that I've kind of started. A couple of years ago, I did a future voter sticker contest with the 4th and 5th grade. We did Stillwater, Perkins, and Ripley. These kids actually were able to design their own future voter sticker. The only thing they had to have on it were those words. And you can kind of see some of them here are the winners. It was really heartwarming to see the patriotism that they have. And then some kids just went off the rails with it, which was cute. So I had some of my volunteers come in and they picked several winners, and those stickers actually went out during the gubernatorial election, and their stickers were handed out across the county. And they love that, so that's something we are going to bring back. And one of the first things I did was a mock election. My daughter was in 5th grade at the time, and she came home talking about what they're learning in civics and knew what I did. And the next thing I know, I get an email from her teacher saying, Kimber said that you'll come and do these things for us at school. I was like, cool. So we actually went in. They were able to fill out a voter registration. They got mock voter registration cards. They signed in just like you do. They voted a mock ballot that was like your favorite sport, favorite state fair food, that thing. And then they actually cast their ballot in a machine. So it's one thing for them to sit there and listen to what our government does, how the election system is, but it's another for them to actually feel like they're involved and they are doing it. And it was really surprising, some of the questions I got. They were very insightful, and you could tell that they were paying a lot more attention than we think. I personally, growing up, my mom took me when she went to vote. I didn't really pay attention a whole lot, but when I turned 18, it was no question that it was my time to go register, and then I actually went and voted with my mom when I was 18. So I encourage the kids to ask their parents, what are we voting on? Can you wait to take me until after school? Why are you voting for this person? Why do they deserve to be in office? And I also talked to them about local elections because it was right after the pandemic and distance learning. And I told them, your school board that your parents are voting on, they decided if you got to come to school or not. And then the importance of showing up. One example I give that blows people's mind is Ripley wanted to have a bond for like $8 million. 4 people showed up to vote. Right. So I explained to the kids, that's like 2 of your classmates deciding whether you get recess the rest of the year or not. Is that fair? So I think a lot of conversations were had when they went home, because I got quite a few emails later that were good, not bad. Another thing that we do that we're starting to do more of is voter outreach. We went to Meridian for Constitution Day and did some voter registrations there. We were at Lights on Stillwater, sweating with the rest of them, registering people, and then we were at the Payne County Fair, and there, the one on the left is my daughter. Our kids, we joke that my kids and the girls in the office, their kids, they will tell their friends, are your parents registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? The older ones. They're like walking advocates now. And one of the best compliments I've got after being out in the community is, we see you guys everywhere. I've never seen an election board be more visible, and that's our goal. If we want to make a change and change the way people see the election system, we need to be out there. And if any of you are part of organizations or committees that would benefit from me coming and talking, soliciting volunteers, there's my contact information, and thank you for having me.
Questions? Yes. Mike?
Here, let me help you with that.
You were talking about registering new voters. Do new voters have to be registered by your election board, an official person, or can someone else have them fill out the paperwork and bring it to you? Does that make sense?
Right, yeah. As long as you have the correct paperwork, which you can get on our website, anybody you can take them to your groups and things, and then you can actually bring them by the office if you like. Yeah. Yes.
Considering you hit on our secure elections in Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
why are more states not following our example, and all they do is cause utter chaos by not having elections counted at night and waiting a day or two later, and then the voter fraud yell becomes loud and probably not deserved, but you can certainly understand where that comes from. Why are they not following our lead?
Well, they're not as smart as us. No. I really don't know the answer to that, other than some of the systems that they're using, like iPads and internet, that seems easier and convenient than actually doing the hard work and putting in that time. So I'm not real sure. No.
That opens up interference.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
I have a question here about volunteering. What's the commitment if one wanted to volunteer? Like, do you have to show up to every single election, or is there more, I guess, flexibility?
Right. Right now, we're so desperate that we would need you for every election. But if we were able to get quite a few, maybe do every other election. Obviously, if you know you're going to be gone or you can't commit, that's fine. Yeah.
How many elections a year are there in Payne County?
This year we will have 6, and they're on your table, so I can already tell you when we would need you.
I have a separate question, if you'll entertain it. Do you remember what was the top polling state fair food at the...
Oh.
And did they win the Electoral College and the Popular?
Oh, yeah. It was funnel cakes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I have one right here. I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
When I was researching for my trivia, I couldn't find a way to word it, but a lot of states are moving to automatic voter registration. I think it's like a third of the U.S. states now have automatic voter registration. How do we feel about that? I think it's a great thing, but I think probably an even equal big issue to voter registration is voter education.
Yes.
And just because you're registered does not mean you're an educated voter.
Absolutely. Election, I have a word for it now, I'm blanking on it. Illiteracy. Election illiteracy is rampant. I think if a lot of people don't know how to register or don't have the initiative to figure it out, so the automatic registration would help with that. But like you said, we can't hold their hand, so you have to, as a voter, are responsible for researching your ballot prior to it being in front of you. So, yeah.
I think, I don't know if I read it, but I think a speaker told us earlier in the year that Oklahoma has the highest percentage of registered voters not voting of any state in the nation.
I would say that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, do you all get together and talk about why that is?
No, we're kind of left, when it comes to outreach and education and the things that aren't specifically stated in our statute what our responsibilities are, we're kind of left to our own county-wise. I would say it just takes time. It takes time, and we're a red state, so a lot of people just be like, does my vote really matter? Well, it does. So I think I hear a lot of that when I'm talking to people is it doesn't matter if I vote or not. So it's overcoming that false narrative.
Yeah.
Rachel?
So one of my favorite things that I've noticed in the last few years was the time you guys had the early voting at the library in the big room.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it is, but I can't seem to make it to your office to vote early. And then I know it's 7 to 7. You guys give us all the access, and I'm still the one pulling in at 6:45 p.m. going, wait.
Yeah.
So do you have plans to have more early voting, like in places like the library where maybe it feels a little bit more familiar to?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we will have early voting for Stillwater at the library. It'll be for all of our major elections, so February and April won't be there. And I don't think I mentioned Cushing's early voting site is at the chamber, and so if they will be there for the major elections as well.
Okay. So is this on? Yeah, you can hear me. So we hear we hear about in various states parties wanting to send observers to the voting, and I always thought, what does that mean, and how does that change, if at all, what's going on in elections? And do we expect any of that, or have we had any of that here in Payne County?
Yes, we had that happen gubernatorial, right? Yes, we had that at early voting, and we've had some at elections. So those are pollsters or, Thomas, what's the other word? Poll watcher, thank you. Yeah, those are fine, and they have every right to do that. They have to register with my office by a certain time, so not just anybody can show up and start interviewing you. I think that is a thing when you go back to the mistrust that's been spoken over elections. All they can do is just watch. If they want to interview you after, they have to be out in the parking lot, away from the machine, away from the voting enclosure, and you don't have to speak to them. But yeah, we've had some of that, and I do expect that this year.
Have there been any issues?
Slight issues.
Pardon?
Slight issues. But yeah, I do expect that for this year.
He told me, you're done. I know we're not done.
Okay.
Talk about absentee ballots.
Oh yeah, absentee ballots. You can You have to apply for an absentee ballot. Those applications only run for a calendar year. There are deadlines for those to request. They are secure. Myself, Thomas, and Dennis, we vet every single one of them. Our policy across the state is we want to count every vote that we can. We're not looking to disqualify anybody. And we very rarely actually reject anything unless you absolutely do not read the instructions and absolutely just, it's funny some of the things we see. But yeah, if you want to avoid the lines, you don't have to have an excuse to do it. Anybody can do it. I actually do it sometimes when I know I'm not going to be able to leave the office to go vote. Notary is required on our standards, so if you're not physically incapacitated, you do need a notary. If you're physically incapacitated, you have 2 witnesses.
Very good. And that'd be a fine for President-elect because you didn't have the mic. Courtney, thank you very much.
Thank you.